I didn't fully accept climate change until the age of 27 in 2018. Before that, people tried to talk to me about it, but the claims sounded so extreme, I could hardly believe it. Climate change is so overwhelming that any one part sounds unbelievable. Not trusting any one source, I looked into climate change myself. I hope this video helps you or someone you know accept the reality of our situation. Please share this video with anyone who is in denial, wants to know more, or is on the edge of accepting just how bad climate change is going to be. I'll say this from the start so you know where I'm coming from. I am a doomer. I think either we can't or we won't stop climate change. I'm expecting a global collapse, not just the collapse of a few countries, but the breakdown of international trade relations. I think it will be even worse than experts predict. There will be extreme weather events, severe food and water shortages, mass migration, and also mass death. This isn't in other parts of the world. It's going to happen where you live. I expect the collapse of America by 2050. There's a strong probability the Earth will become uninhabitable by 2100, with a planet atmosphere similar to Venus. Look, the amount of energy we're releasing into the atmosphere is the equivalent of multiple nuclear bombs per minute. That energy has to go somewhere. Look up Earth Overshoot Day and know what it means. Look up biodiversity. How much of the world is wildlife? How much? Take a guess. It's 3%. We own everything else. Look, in my youth, I was a poor kid growing up in America. I had more immediate problems than to care about climate change. I mean, most poor people do. Besides, when I was a kid, I thought if it was really bad, people would do something about it. They wouldn't just let it go. I mean, won't we solve it like we do in the movies? We'll get the smartest, best people to solve it. Scientists will invent something. I really liked Star Trek. I thought we were all going for Star Trek. In adulthood, it still took a while to chip away at my childlike views. The people who talked to me about climate change were often angry and frustrated, and I didn't respond well to that. I didn't want to listen to what they had to say. They talked about individual responsibility and what we're each doing to impact climate change. And again, I just felt like I had bigger problems. And at the same time, it also felt like a question of optimism or pessimism. Are you an optimist or a pessimist? Do you think that we can solve it, or do you think we can't solve it? And I just identified more with optimism. What else was confusing was that it almost sounded like a conspiracy theory. The top 100 companies produce 70% of the emissions. I mean, if people really knew what was going on, wouldn't we stop those people, those executives, from making those decisions? Wouldn't people not work for them if they knew it was going to be this bad? It almost doesn't make sense. It's also hard to believe people would be that evil, selling out billions of lives, future lives, adding all that suffering to make some wealth now. They sound like really evil people, and I thought somebody would stop them if that were really the case. I mean, how would they be allowed into power? A lot of climate change seemed to be about individual responsibility, and by American standards, my carbon footprint was pretty low. The worst thing I was doing was eating fast food. I didn't really buy much new clothes. I didn't take my first plane flight until I was 23. I was doing my small part. I knew this problem was so much bigger than me, and I just put it aside. I set it aside for years. As I got my computer science degrees, I became more of a technologist. I believed that we needed energy, and it was a good thing, and that if we were going to deal with climate change, it was going to be through innovation. We'd have to invent technology to solve this. I didn't want technological development to stop, and I was still caught up in my own life. I met some really knowledgeable people who gave me pause. I talked to them, they seemed very concerned about climate change, they seemed to know a lot more than I did, and it really made me listen more. I thought as we aged, we would care more. I thought we would create policies, fund projects, do something, but the more it went on, the more it seemed like we weren't doing anything. It was just getting worse. From 2016 to 2018, I was in graduate school for computer science, and I was fixated on that. I had to be. But I was resolute that once I finished, I would devote time to climate change, form a serious opinion, and learn a lot more. My journey. After having deep discussions with friends, I had areas I wanted to research. I wanted to sit down, read the actual climate change science, and I felt I had enough of an academic background to get some sense of it. But when I set out to do something like this, I usually know it's been done before. So I looked for someone who's been doing this, and I found someone much more knowledgeable than me. Professor Jem Bendel wrote a viral paper that was downloaded over 100,000 times by the average person. Now, he's not a climate change expert, he's not a climatologist, but he is a professor of sustainability leadership. He's been working in sustainability a long time. He took a year-long sabbatical, so he wasn't working, just to read up on all of the current climate change science and see how bad it was. His paper is shocking, and I encourage you to read it. He's primarily addressing workers and researchers in the sustainability field, but the message is clear. We need to talk about near-term social collapse. There are very few people in the world even acknowledging it. You will see a breakdown of society where you live. You will likely experience starvation, death, disease, violence, and migration where you live. This is all likely in most countries over the next 10 years. Look, I could barely believe it. I looked for criticisms of this paper. I looked for what people were saying. The biggest criticism is not that any of the science is incorrect, that it's a misread. The biggest criticism of the paper was that it didn't use academic language. He wasn't saying it nice enough. I started reading articles, watching a ton of YouTube papers, listening to audiobooks on climate change like the works of Naomi Klein, and I really tried to take it all in. I felt my mind shift in possibilities as I realized that not only could our species go extinct, but we could turn the Earth into an unhospitable planet for life, with an atmosphere like Venus, and that this would be obvious by 2100. Look, I want to save you time. When I realized how ignorant I was and how I was really shifting my mindset, I wanted to share this with other people in a way that they could see my thought process and just follow along. I decided to write down what I was learning and catalog my descent into climate change. I hope it helps you accept the full reality, and you can read about it on my website at philosopherscholar.com/global warming. Again, if you hear one part, it's hard to even make sense of it, but when you get multiple perspectives, you gain a fuller picture. I also began tracking global warming in the news. I was looking for trends, disasters, predictions, and I started to write summaries of those articles. And you can read about this on philosopherscholar.com/global warming news. I wrote summaries until I gave up. Basically until I was convinced that this was really happening, it's really bad, and it's accelerating. Most of those news articles will come from the years of 2018 to 2019. Honestly, the main reason I stopped is because I became convinced. I'm sharing this with you to give you a starting point. Observe the world around you. Learn from trusted sources. Look, I did not want to believe this. I really didn't want to believe this. I mean, why would I? After a year of learning, I put my thoughts together in a paper, and I presented it to my local philosophy club. I thought if anyone could criticize these arguments, it would be philosophers. I hoped they would tear down these arguments, but no one could. Look, I'm a little crazy, genuinely, but nothing makes me feel so crazy when I talk to people about climate change and get two reactions. Either they're doing nothing about it, or there is nothing I can say is going to happen, no horrible, horrible thing that people wouldn't just say, yep, that's definitely going to happen. I don't blame people for not knowing. There are forces in the world actively trying to deceive us, to hide this information. Besides, most of us are busy trying to survive in the world as it is now. Climate change is also extremely complex. To grasp at this problem, means knowing some of politics, economics, biology, agriculture, history, physics, oceanography, international relations, ecology, chemistry, even AI and machine learning, where machine learning models are used to predict the future climate. To simplify, heat has to go somewhere. We're burning fuel. For the last few decades, the ocean has absorbed much of the heat. But water boils. The air is a gas. Gas gets hot. Lands will dry and turn to desert. This isn't beyond you. We're heating up. People need to do something, but most of all, we need to connect with each other to have any chance. You will feel many intense emotions as you come to understand the problem that we're all facing. Now, you can look away for a little while, but not too long. You need to become resilient and able to adapt to have any chance of survival. Either you make yourself resilient and adaptable, or you die. The challenges I've faced in my life made me who I am. I don't fall into despair for too long. I will continue in the face of death or extinction. I have a plan to fight climate change and every societal problem at once. If you're watching this video, please, I need your help. Stay tuned, stay ready.